Hey y'all, welcome to Night Shift Delirium, a podcast about junior doctors and the world that surrounds them. I'm your host, Victoria, a junior doctor based in England. I hope you all enjoyed the holidays and are ready for the first episode of 2022. Today, we're interviewing Nwamaka as we continue our Duality series. Nwamaka is an optician based in Atlanta with an amazing new eyewear company. This is her story. Welcome to our shift, y'all. Welcome to Night Shift Delirium. Today, we are talking with Nwamaka as we continue our Duality series. Nwamaka is an optometrist, an entrepreneur, but I will allow you to introduce yourself. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to be here. I love every opportunity I get to share my story, to share my journey. And I hope that it inspires people who are listening. So I'm supposed to introduce myself, right? I am Nwamaka Nkadi. I am an optometrist, as you already stated. And I recently have branched out or into eyewear design. So I'm also an eyewear designer. I am a first generation Nigerian American, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Igbo. That's my tribe in Nigeria. And I'm also a Xavier grad, which is how we met. We had the wonderful opportunity to meet through our connections as sorors of the Gamma Alpha chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Yes, so yeah, that's who I am.
Awesome. So you've mentioned that you're an optometrist, and I have as well. What led you to optometry, and what was your journey sort of getting to that career, going through the professional sort of landscape? Usually on the podcast, we interview residents from various specialties, but we sometimes branch out. So I think you're the first optometrist that we've had. And I think, and getting to know a lot of other optometrists through Xavier, it's something that we don't really come across. I mean, I think my understanding is only 3% of optometrists in America are Black. So correct. What led you there? Why optometry?
So as a member of a sorority, I'm sure you understand or have experienced that your line sisters bring you to the best and worst of situations all at the same time. And so one of my line sisters, her name is Tiffany Humes. She's also an optometrist. And she got on the path of optometry via her aunt, who was an optometrist. I wore glasses since the second grade. I just really didn't know much about it. My parents took me to a local retailer. Wasn't a lot of education. It was just more so like a refraction type of thing, which is the part where they check you for glasses. So at any rate, Tiffany and I were discussing this in my last year at Xavier University after my not so wonderful experience with the MCAT. I still applied to medical school because I was sure that that was what I was going to do. I had been saying that I wanted to be a doctor since a very young age, which is, of course, why I went to Xavier. My parents encouraged it, specifically my Nigerian father, who had heard that Xavier was this awesome place if you wanted to be a doctor. So he insisted somewhat that I attend Xavier, and I was excited because I couldn't wait to get out of Georgia. So I went to Xavier, and all 3.5, I guess, years, pre-Katrina also, let me just throw that in there, I was going to go to medical school. So once I took the MCAT in the spring of 2006, and it didn't go as we thought it would go, I still applied to medical school. And I don't know why I did that, but that's another story for another day. Anyway, applied to medical school, didn't get in. So now we're approaching the end of my senior year, and I'm frantic because I'm an overachiever, as most of us were. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What's my plan B? It was too late to apply to any graduate programs at that time. So somewhere in the mix of that, I had applied for a summer program that was for MCAT prep. So it was Tiffany that day that actually encouraged me to look into optometry. This was, again, spring of my senior year. She encouraged me to look into optometry. So that summer I spent prepping for the MCAT, but I also did some prep for OAT. And then I retook the MCAT, did a lot better. Okay, so I reapplied for medical school, and I got waitlisted. But I was simultaneously applying for optometry school because I'd done wonderfully on the OAT, the optometry admissions test. And so I had a couple of interviews for optometry school and I got in. Actually, let me rephrase that. I had one interview because I only applied to two schools, and one of the applications I didn't complete because girl was still going to medical school. Girl was not listening to any of the signs. I was still going to medical school. So, but I got waitlisted. I got waitlisted, interviewed and waitlisted. And I got into optometry school. And as I was waiting for the results of the wait list, I kind of had to do some introspective, looking into my soul just about what I was going to do. And I realized that I was really okay with going with the plan B, that the concept of being a doctor, especially after that summer program where they had us kind of like carving up cadavers and stuff. I was like, this is not from, this is not for the kid. And also just seeing people stay up through the night. I'm like, do you really want to be this person? Like, is your success going to be on the other side of staying up every night? Not that optometry school was easy, because it wasn't, but it was doable. And I think that the culture here in the US for training for medicine makes it such that it feels so unattainable almost. And they just make the task so, let's just say, ridiculous in some instances, right? But the responsibility is there. So we know that people have to have what it takes to be responsible for people's lives, but it was ridiculous to me. So I realized that my plan B was sounding pretty good. I ended up getting denied from medical school and told to go get a post-bac. And I was like, I ain't doing that because I ain't spending no more money on something that doesn't have a payout at the end. So I was like, let's go on and roll with plan B. And so that's how I ended up at Salus University, which was then at that time, Pennsylvania College of Optometry. So yeah.
I feel like there's so much in there because, I went to Xavier too. And I mean, I had a slightly different, much more convoluted path, to be honest. But I just feel like sometimes we obviously also speaking as a first generation American as well, like the idea of doctor and, it can just be very limiting when there are so many other options that are just as rewarding, just as quote unquote important, just as beneficial salary wise. You know what I mean? So I definitely think a lot of people would hear that and are probably maybe thinking, let's explore other options, because everything is important. You're still a doctor. You're still serving so many people that need it, especially as a minority. And, I love being a doctor, like a medical doctor, but there's more to life.
There's a lot more to life, which I think we found out. And I think, I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, and God just knows so many things, right? Obviously, he's all knowing, that we don't know, right? So and especially being a type A, type of get it done type of girl, just to realize, like, even then I was listening. Like, even then I was obedient to some of these, ways that he was trying to move me, because I could have tried even harder than I did to get into medical school, but that wasn't for me. One thing I always knew was that I eventually wanted to own something. And that was a benefit of my parents both being entrepreneurs. So I knew that I wanted to be in charge, so to speak, of my own destiny and finances or financial outcome. So I don't know that would have happened as readily had I gone the path of traditional medicine. So I'm very glad that I found optometry, or optometry found me, or however we want to describe it. It has brought me quite a bit of joy.
I love that. And that sort of gets into my next question. So in our Duality series, we talk about people who have their own path, who's like, go down a path less trodden. They don't always have a blueprint for their final destination, but they have certain goals, be it entrepreneurship, being exploring creativity, and you've mentioned that your parents were sort of there. So were they your sort of role models, role models in terms of entrepreneurship? Because you also own I
Practice. Yeah, I do. I have a
practice.
So that's what pays my bills currently. So yes, I own a practice. So the way
Yeah.
so I'll explain a couple of things in response to this question. So basically, one thing about optometry that I think is unique is that you do have the opportunity to be an entrepreneur early on. The reason why is because a lot of us contract work, we lease space from various retail locations, and we're able to set up practice in these locations. We're not an employee of these places a lot of the time. Sometimes you are, depends on the structure or the state, because it is a legislative field that depends on the state legislation, if you will. However, you have the opportunity to lease these spaces. You do also have the opportunity to create private practices or start your own, independent store. But again, it's very easy to get a business, to get a lease, contract that space, lease that space, and set up your practice within that practice. You can still bill insurances, you can still take cash, and you essentially sell your services. Some places you can sell your services and products, and I'm still talking about retail. Of course, if you go outside and you create a standalone, you're selling your services, you're selling the product, which is the glasses or the contact lenses, accessories, etc. All of this to say that yes, my parents were a huge influence. Absolutely. But not it because their businesses, my father was a contractor, and my mother, they started together a family business of owning a daycare center. So obviously, neither one of these things have anything to do with optometry, except for that they served and have and continue to serve families. So I knew that I wanted to serve families. I knew that I wanted to be in a space where I could, even when I thought I was going to med school, I wanted to do family practice. I wanted to see and serve families. And one of the things that I always tell people is that my parents are amazing people. I know sometimes people say that, but I say that because they are genuinely good people. They are kind people. They are people that operate in integrity. And these are a lot of the traits that I learned from them. But I but what I can say honestly is that I'm sure there were business practices that they wished were available to them when they were doing their in their earlier years of their business, if that makes sense. So there are business practices that they have helped me invest in and that I've invested in myself to actually have a business that pays out. Because it's one thing to have a business, then it's a totally different thing to have a business that actually pays out, where you could actually cut yourself a check. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs understand that, like, all right, am I just going there? Is it like a job? Or do I actually cut checks, right? So there's been some learning curve for me. I will say that when I first started the business, what had happened was that after optometry school, and let me just also say, I struggled through optometry school, right? I crawled through optometry school, and it's a lot of different reasons. It was in Philadelphia, it was cold. Like I love friendship, I'm a sorority girl. I love all that kind of stuff. And it was just a totally different environment for me when I went to PCO. Met some awesome people, but it was a struggle. I'll just say that. So after optometry school, I had determined that I wanted to do the 1-year optional residency that is associated with our profession. And I chose and I applied and was accepted as a resident for a ocular disease residency, and that thing was hard. And what was hard was the culture. The culture of it was hard. There was also a lot of gaps in learning because, again, some of these programs, they shuffle you through, they get you through. And as a hands-on person, certain things just weren't like intuitive to me. So there was a space for me to grow in my learning. But in doing so, the culture was a little bit toxic. I'll just say that. So, or for me, for my personality. What I did get really good at was quick patient care. What I did get really good at was having a lot of confidence when I made an assessment of a patient about how I wanted to manage. So I was grateful for that experience. But it was real toxic. And I just knew, like, midway through, I was like, I ain't working for nobody. I'm going to have to reach out to the connects and I'm going to have to see what's up with getting my own spot because I'm not doing this no more. I knew that I didn't want to be held to these certain benchmarks. I knew I didn't want to be in academia. I got a little loud on that part. I knew I didn't want to be in academia. I do love training students on clinical skills, but I knew I didn't want to be in this field of like, and so what do you think about the chorioretinal? I don't care. I don't. Are they bleeding? Are they blind? How do we help them? Like that's kind of where my vibe was when it came. So all of these were discoveries that I made in the residency. And so by halfway through the residency, I was reaching out to connects and recruiters from, I'll just say it, I have a Walmart location, but at the time I was reaching out to the recruiters. One of my homegirl had just gotten the Walmart I wanted. She got the one that, you know, the hometown Walmart right down the street from my parents' house. And so at the time, the only thing that was available was a Sam's Club. And it was my hometown Sam's Club down the street from the daycare. So, you know, shout out to Clayco. My mom's daycare is in Rex, Georgia. So I got the Sam's Club, in Clayton County, in Morrow, Georgia, and I was there for 5 years, and it served me very well. But when I first started, I wasn't worried about making no money. I just didn't want nobody to tell me what to do no more. So those first few years, me being in business, I wasn't making no money, honey. And they used to do this thing where they would pay you out in cash. And girl, before I even pulled off that parking lot, I had blown through that money, you know. So I wasn't making any money when I first started. I just didn't have a quote unquote boss. It was a few years later, I got some mentors and I got serious and I buckled down. And then I started to make more money and generate more income in that business. So yes, I own that business and I have owned that since 2013. And I still exist and practice inside of a Walmart setting.
I love that. I feel like there's a lot of like nuggets there, right? Like, so the importance of like recognizing what is a priority to you. And I think that's across all fields of, you know, health sciences, allied health, everything, because the academic world is a very specific world that people don't always like think about. Like, oh, I want to go to these big name institutions that you've heard of, but the priority is not always patient care, quite frankly, in a lot of those settings. It's research, it's teaching, and all of that is very important, but it plays a role. And I think, you know, for people who don't have generations and generations of healthcare professionals in America, it's a really important distinction that you definitely benefit from thinking about those things early on. And then also recognizing when something is no longer serving you and you need to like branch out and figure out your next step. Like I would definitely say that I'm one of these plan A through Z people. I always have a plan A, I have a plan B, I have a plan C, I have a plan D. Right. And the moment a red flag pops up, I'm out. Like, because life is way too short to be wasting in the wrong profession or like wrong sort of setting.
In the wrong space. Because, you know, you do, especially our generation, we keep asking, well, what is your why? What is your why? But before we started asking what was my why, before that was something that has, you know, we weren't on Instagram the way we are now, right? Asking our whys and reading all these reasons we need to shift. I knew that I needed to be joyful. Like I knew that I couldn't thrive in an environment that was suffocating me or toxic. And so, you know, that first Sam's Club, I met one of the best people I've ever known in my life. I still know her. Matter of fact, her daughter works for me now. She's one of my technicians. And she just was a great manager. And it wasn't her fault that we weren't making money. But what I got from her was that work could be joyful because she was making money. Her side, her what they were selling on that side, she was like one of the top sellers and top performers in her region, if you will. And so she was making, I wasn't making no money, but we was having a good time. Together, collectively, fun was being had. And so that was a lesson, but that was a lesson I needed. That was the space I needed. She was the perfect person because she was the type of manager that the staff really liked her. The people in the store liked her. The patients liked her. You know, she was likable, but she can take no mess. You're not going to come over here and start saying crazy stuff. And she just is like, okay, customers, right? But she made customers feel that they were right in a lot of instances, but she operated in such integrity that you were not going to come over here and say that we did this and we didn't do that. No, she operated in too much integrity to allow that to happen. But here's the thing, and I'll just explain why. Very little patient complaints over there for her specifically. So yeah, there's a balance that we all have to get into, and there's a figuring out your why. And when things don't serve you, you really do have to move. Like when you're really not fulfilling your own goals or the promises that you made to yourself, you do have to kind of like get out of that space.
I love that. So we've spoken about sort of why you got into optometry, how you got into it, and then sort of how you introduced your professional life and into entrepreneurship. Tell us about your latest venture, your eyewear company. It's amazing. I mean, I haven't yet gotten it. It's on my list, but you know what I'm saying? We're young in our career. We got some money to make first, but you know, it's on the list. It's going to happen.
For your listeners, right? For your listeners that want to check it out, they'll understand when they go to the site. So it's www.anwuli.eyewear.com. That's ANWULI eyewear.com. So y'all check it out. So what she's talking about, what Vic's talking about, is that I have started what I like to refer to as a mid-luxury brand, right, of eyewear. The thing about eyewear is that most of it and most of the eyewear space is dominated by lines designed to fit European features. So even though I have been in quote unquote glasses or contacts or needing some sort of visual correction since I was 8, by the time I was 14, I was begging for contacts because most of the glasses were ridiculous. I mean, they did not look good. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. I mean, style has just come so far, right? But one thing that I don't think has caught up so much is the eyewear industry. I think quite a few of the frames and the designer brands that so many people like just do not fit our faces. Very well made pieces, wonderfully made pieces, but they do not fit my face. They just don't. And I'm West African. I have a round face. Sure, maybe my picture might be posted with this blog, with this blog. Sound like somebody's mom. With this with this podcast, right? For some visuals, but I have a very round face. I have very high cheekbones. And so a lot of Black people do. Now we know that Black people do not all look the same. We are aware of that, but there are some uniform features, which is why Beyonce can sing about them, right? We do have certain shapes of the nose. We do have certain features that are very different from European features. And yet most of the eyewears are designed for their bridges, the bridges of their nose, for the shapes of their heads. And they do have some stuff that they call quote unquote extended fit. But in my opinion, a lot of those were not stylish. So when you see somebody with a face like mine that doesn't want to do contacts, we often see people in the industry pushing them towards men's frames, things of that nature. Even the men's frames, sometimes you see them and it looks like the temples of the glass is just not quite getting where they need to be. They're not quite behind the ears because that measurement from their eye, that temple, that side measurement of their head is so long that the temples mostly don't fit.
New Year's resolutions, Delirium edition. Emergency medicine. To come up with the possible diagnosis before referring to a specialty. GP. Review the patient prior to sending them to the emergency room. Orthopods. Consider the person attached to the limb. Pharmacists. Fight the urge to leave a passive-aggressive comment about a prescription. Internal medicine. Smile. And a special shout-out to the juniors in my hospital. Complete your VTEs. Happy New Year, y'all!
So I wanted to create some eyewear that actually fit Black and African features optimally. And of course, again, not all Black people are the same. But I had to start somewhere, right? So I designed stuff that I knew would fit people like me and patients like me for sure. And so they're larger. They have larger eye sizes. The frames have longer temples. And then the big thing was style. I wanted frames that made a statement without speaking. I wanted something that was fly. I wanted people to get things that they would love in colors and shapes that they would love and that would fit really well. And so that's what I did. Because again, what's my why? My why is joy and peace. And something that brings me joy is being free. And that's something that I didn't open up my mouth to say until, the past few years, but I've done all these assessments, and what it comes down to is I want to be free. So freedom for me means that I can afford to do the things that I want to do, as well as having joy and peace. Like I feel peaceful when I rest at night, and I have true joy in my heart and spirit. So Emily, the name of the brand, that's actually my middle name, and it means joy in Igbo. So I'm dedicated to making eyewear a pure joy. So you see that tagline on a lot of my stuff that I put out, a lot of the branding and the media that I put out, because yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make eyewear a joy. We're trying to bring some fashion that fits. And I want, when I first started, that was one of my possible taglines. So sometimes you'll see it, but it's like fashion is in the fit, and people like try to talk me out of it. But also, as someone who is plus size and into fashions, right? There are clothes that they didn't make for plus size people.
Come on, somebody.
Just 5 years ago, you couldn't get a crop top.
Let's talk about it.
So there are people who I look up to and aspire to, and I'm not sure that I put two and two together until I started building out the brand. People start to ask you these questions, and you're like, I kind of want to do for eyewear with somebody like a Gabby Fresh or like a Monique did for plus size fashion. They created the fashions and the sizes.
Yeah. I love it. I love so much of it because, I definitely have men's wear glasses. When like bigger glasses came into style, it was like, oh, finally, like I can go into the men's without it sort of being like weird or whatever.
Yep.
And for the exact reasons in which you described, they just fit my face. I mean, I do by nature have a very large head, and I'm not ashamed of that. Like I have a very big head.
Girl, same, sure do.
So when I saw your frames, like I love that they're bright. You have different colors, different shapes, different sizes. I feel like so often, especially women and like Black women, sometimes we're sort of forced to be like more subdued than we naturally would be, or than other groups are expected to be. And I love that, you found a way for us to continue to live out loud, wholly and fully in something that's so important. Like your eyewear, your eyesight, all of that is super, super essential. Like this is how we interact with the world. So it's nice to see frames that are designed to like encapsulate so much of who we are, like on a spiritual level in many ways. So I love it. I love the eyewear. And I mean, I'm obviously a broke resident, so I'm talking like it's just crazy, but that's just I'm poor. But
so it's a mid-luxury item, and that's one thing too that I had to be very clear about, right? Because I could have done this. I work every day in a setting that is, rolling back prices. You get what I'm saying? So I could have done this on a lower level, but I'm really into this I'm really into getting comfortable with Black luxury, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I want to exist in that space where you kind of do have to think about it. So I don't take it. People always think that like I've owned a business for 8 years, and when you're doing a business or when you create a business, it's not for everybody, because there are people who will not walk into a Walmart and get their eyes checked. They're just not going to do it, including and not limited to some of my friends, right? And then even like I make a joke about my mom. My mom is my biggest fan by far. She, and I just got married. God love him to death. But he's, she's been around a lot longer than you, boo. So she's my biggest fan. But she don't come and get her free eye exam every year. You understand what I'm saying? Like you when you open a business, you need to just get it out of your head that you're selling to your friends, because you're not. Yes. And so I'm trying to exist in the space in eyewear with this current brand where people love the luxurious eyewears and they want something that fits. So it's top quality. We're using Italian acetates. They're handcrafted, stainless steel. So very good quality for the price of what we're putting out. So it's just, it's just another, like if you think about your Brandon Blackwoods, or you think about your Telfar, right? That's the space that I hope to move into in eyewear. And it's not for everybody because not everybody wants luxurious eyewear. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions when you think about eyewear. A lot of people only have one pair of glasses.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do wear them every day, and I still do tend to lean towards contacts, and I know this may not sound good for branding, but I've been wearing contacts since I was 14 years old, like exclusively. So sometimes, yes, having stuff on my face to work because I trained with contacts, so a lot of times if I have another, and I know I'm getting scientific, but if I have another refracting surface between me and the ocular lenses that I'm using to examine patients, sometimes it can be uncomfortable, because that's just not how I trained. But if you think about people using glasses every single day, it's kind of like thinking about using the same pair of shoes every single day. Like you're wearing it every day. So everything you encounter in that day could be on those lenses, from hairspray to grease to scratches because you put them down on something. So it's okay to have multiple pairs of frames, but there are people who already feel like that. And that's who we sell it to. We're selling to those people who already feel like that, or people who the other day I was at a pop-up shop and I had a man come back to the booth. I did a pop-up shop. He came back 4 times before he bought those glasses. Because typically when you're buying luxury, you don't just get on the website. You've already saved up your money, or you've already decided that that's somewhere that you want to spend your coin. And he came back 4 times because he didn't plan to spend that money at that pop-up shop. But once he put them on his face and he saw the difference, he knew. And it's a mixture of that client and the client that actually love a luxury item. They just love something well made, that's packaged well, that just looks good. Those are who we trying to get to. That's where we are. And you should feel no guilt, right? Because even if you did save up your resident coin and spend it on something, I would be like, go girl, live.
It's funny that you mentioned like the Brandon Blackwood and Telfar, because I was like, I consider your frames to be on that same. Like I've got a Telfar, we plan for it, and I'm gonna get some frames when we plan for it. I just love that, because why not? We do deserve luxury, and like I don't know of anyone who's doing what you're doing, and like that it looks good. So I love that, and we absolutely deserve luxury, because why not?
There are some people coming up. There are some Black eyewear designers that I've had the opportunity to meet. With Black people, so talented. Look at y'all talented.
Listen.
Like, love us. But one thing I will say, and I will pat myself on the back for, is that I really did size these different. Like that was a goal that I had. Some people may feel like I overshot it because they may feel like, oh, these are big, but y'all been wearing small stuff, making them big for a long time. So make these big ones a little bit smaller and you're okay, right? But there are some dope and amazing designers that I've met as I've gotten into this journey and into this space, and I'm happy to know them. And a lot of them have been very helpful. So I love that for us. But yes, definitely develop these sizes based on my perception, based on my experience and my exposure. And I troubleshot, I did some troubleshooting, got some samples back and forth from different manufacturers to figure out what was the best option. So I'm super excited and feel very confident about the brand and what I've produced and put out for the people. And I'm getting a lot of very positive feedback. In fact, we're in 4 different practices right now in Atlanta.
Amazing.
Still selling direct to consumer as we build brand awareness. So you can get them on the website, or you can go in, and I have the retailers listed on the website. Right now we're just in Atlanta, but we hope to expand to different places as we start to get more and more of our brand out.
I love that, and congratulations, honestly. And because this has been a year or so, is that
ish
or less?
Ish,
so that's amazing.
That's a different story. So I pre-sold frames, which was interesting.
Right.
A person waiting on supply chain during this COVID period. So it was interesting for the girl. But we made it. And so now we are coming up on about a year of when I started to take the pre-orders. People got their pre-orders in August, but now we're shipping like we have the supply, we have the product. So as soon as people place orders, the shipping of within a day.
Amazing. Okay, so we don't know where life will take us, in the next 10, 15, whatever years, God willing. But do you think that you're going to continue working as an optometrist as well as
No.
No.
Answer to that is no. I know. So here's the thing. Optometry has served me very well. I have truly enjoyed it. And I also specifically enjoyed my freedom and the joy that I found in owning my own practice. But healthcare, the space of healthcare in the US is a very interesting place to be in. And I feel that I'm a lot closer. There's a lot less between me and the patient than I feel other fields that are doctors, give or take some certain things. And when I say that, I mean things like the way staffing is set up. I'm real up close and personal about people's insurances, and the insurance have their own bit. And then you have this space that exists where people can be very non-compliant. And do you read Humans of NY? Do you follow them on
Instagram? Sometimes. I follow them, but sometimes it's a little long for me.
It's a lot long, and especially with other stories. One of the stories recently was about a guy who had gotten stabbed in his eye during a robbery and lost his vision, right? And I knew before, when I started reading, I knew where it was going. But the thing that's crazy for me in eye care is that a lot of people's biggest fear is losing their vision. However, there are so many ways that they're non-compliant. You would not even think that that was the case. So, I'm going to keep renewing my license. For sure. But I want, and I see myself moving into a space where I create value by providing people these opportunities to wear these, wonderful frames that fit their face as well. Like, I see that may be a space that I can walk to and create this value, for people who want it, as opposed to having to try to
deal with other complexities in their life
of healthcare, I think it's the non-compliance that gets me the most, because I want them to see well.
It's so interesting. Like, obviously I exist in this space. I live and work in England, where you have this free healthcare, and then America, and obviously a lot of the challenge in America is paying for it. Even, there's just a lot of different complexities of America. But interestingly, in England, I go thinking of the American framework, where you go for a yearly checkup, a yearly eye, whatever, a yearly dental, whatever. And in England, they don't do yearly checkups in anything unless you have diabetes. Okay. Otherwise, you only go to the doctor when you're sick, which is so interesting, because I really believe in preventive healthcare way more than I realized until I was in a move to a country where that's not really a thing. Because obviously you avoid so much if along the way you care for certain things, or you're checking things and reviewing things. But in England, it's not a thing. They only go when they're sick, and often they're presenting to the hospital or whatever. In the community, they don't go as much. They'll call in, maybe they'll say, oh, go to see your optometrist and go get dilated or whatever it may be. But they're not going sort of regularly, which I'm sure has to do with, insurance companies in America want that yearly, whatever amount. But I think it's useful. So for me, like, I'm actually in a space where I'm sort of reckoning between the two, where I want people to be going yearly, and especially in a place where healthcare is actually free, but there's no standard for yearly physicals or checkups. So it's just an interesting space.
I'm not sure I knew you were in the UK. In fact, I did not know you were in the UK.
Yes.
as a fan of yours, follow. But you don't post a
I'm
lot
very
in the UK.
No, I'm very low key about my like movings and things. I've been in England and training in England for 2 years now. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll stay there forever, probably a couple years max.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway. All right. So let's talk about your rose and your thorn. What has been the most rewarding part of your entrepreneurial journey? And what has been the most challenging part? I guess in relation to creating your brand more so than your eye practice.
Okay. So the reward has come now. I would say the most rewarding part for me is seeing the frames on people's faces and them understanding what I was trying to do. That has really just been, it's literally my dream come true, right? So seeing people in the fashions, baby, looking great. But then also people getting to touch and see the quality, feel how they feel on their faces, and how something, in my opinion, feels a lot different when it actually fits. So that has been by far the most rewarding part of this process. The most challenging part absolutely was the supply chain situation that's been going on, particularly because of COVID. The flip side of that same coin is that not sure I would have launched the way I did had it not been for COVID. That was scary, right? Your girl was scary.
Yeah.
And people had to really ask themselves if they were trying to make something shake during that time that we had, if you want to call it down, if you whatever. It's like, are you here for it? Are you really trying to do this? And so I had to make some big girl moves because I was counting on going to all these conferences, and it was going to be at these conferences that were happening during that I was going to meet this person or going to do this thing at this conference. One is in February, one is in March, another one is coming around in May, then there's one in September. And I was going to do all these things that got done quicker because COVID happened. But on that same ticket, again, everything that was put in production in 2020 and 2021 was behind. And you can just ask anybody that's building something. So
yeah, wow. Yeah, I mean, COVID obviously changed the game for everything and everyone, but definitely creation of products. Obviously, in Europe, things like in England, we definitely see that in a more dramatic way because of Brexit and all this, the politics of it. But I think everyone has sort of been struggling with that. But I mean, you did it. So here we are.
Did, as they say, did.
We're nearing the end. I really just have two more questions for you. Okay. Is there anything that you want people to know about yourself or your journey into optometry or your entrepreneurship, or any words of advice? Do you have anything that you'd like to share with people that we haven't spoken about already?
I think mine is that I really want to convey to people, and I feel this in a very deep way, that we are all worthy of the life that we want.
I love that. I love that. I saw that on your story. Congratulations. When you were posting about your wedding and everything, and I just love that. And I think we should all definitely walk away with that message. Okay, so last question is long. Sometimes, the hardest part, I think, of being a successful professional is challenging this narrative of the hustle, right? Like glamorizing the hustle, work hard every day. We have the same amount of hours as Beyonce, all of that, right? But equally now we're seeing more people talk about the importance of like rest and self-care. So I'm going to give you three options or four really, of ways in which you can choose to take care of yourself. Okay, so the first one is, and so you have to pick one and tell me why. First one is Nigel no to carry last. Okay, so this is me as an outsider. I'm not Nigerian, but the glitz, the glam, the party, everyone is there. Like you're just having a good time. You're not really thinking about anything other than let's get this leg work or whatever the kids are doing. So that's option one. Option two is the Harvey family yacht experience. Okay. Steve Harvey and his family are always on a vacation somewhere. They might invite a few people, you know, they're luxuriating on a yacht in the Mediterranean somewhere, minding their own business. So that's, you know, option number two. Option number three is the unlisted Forbes billionaire. Okay. These people that have hella money and have paid someone to not include their name on a list. They mind their business. We're thinking like a spa experience at home. No one really knows. And then the fourth option is make your own adventure. So it's none of the ones that are listed, but it's another way in which you would take care of yourself. Which of those options would you pick and why?
Yeah, it's make my own adventure. I'm a lot of things to a lot of people. You know, I'm a party girl. Everybody knows that. But I also love vacations where I don't post pictures. It's a lot of stuff that happens that I don't post that nobody really knows anything about. As I
We love the cut the recording gang.
The recording! Period. Turn off this camera. What are you doing? And then, of course, I do love spa services, and I'm one, again, who values experiences very highly. So, yeah, I'm going to make my own adventure because it's definitely a combination of all of those things. It includes all of those things. But more than any of those things, it includes, right, again, the concept of being free. So, like me not feeling like I'm limited by money or anything like that. But it also then includes, like, awesome people. And I value very highly, and anybody who knows anything about me knows that I value my relationships and the people in my life very highly. And I enjoy being able to be with them and see people face to face. I love being able to see people face to face. So that's really important to me. So a lot of times I am going to be meeting people at these different settings or seeing people or including people in these different settings. So yeah, I got to make my own adventure.
I love that. And
option.
Yeah, I love that. One of the reasons why I wanted to interview you is because I see and respect so much in you something that I value, which is community. And, you know, your network is your net worth and all of that, you know, and you're someone who very much so has a very strong community that you clearly support. They support you. And we love to see it in a mid-luxury space, if you will.
Let me show you something. So let me show you something. Okay, it may not have been this one, but there was a time I bought these pouches from you. There's a few.
Yes!
And I think this is one of them. And then there's a purse that I have that's in my other closet that I have. So when I see these things, I don't always think of you, but I actually do often think of you, and I lift you in prayers. I know that. So I do in a lot of ways value people that people may not always like see it out loud, but like, yeah, you have provided me some depth. So.
Oh no, the internet kind of went out there, but I hear and receive your message.
Definitely carried that purse I bought from your cousin not too long ago. Do you remember those little basket purse? I always get compliments on that. Definitely is in some of my pictures if you look on my website.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
It looks a little vibe to it. So yeah, I appreciate you. I love Cut the Recording Gang. I love everything. I sometimes feel like we met at Xavier, but I know we didn't. And I just
so it's so odd. There are a few like people that I feel like a connection with, and the years didn't work, but you know, it's all spiritual at the end of the day. So
it really is. It absolutely is. It was great.
This was so good. Thank you for doing it.
Oh, no problem.
I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode with Dr. Nwamaka Ngadi. And I hope you also find your way to her website, which is ANWULIEYEWEAR, for your own set of frames. There was a lot that we talked about in terms of entrepreneurship, purpose, and finding our why. But more importantly, we spoke about the importance of community. I hope that some of those lessons remain with you all as we go through 2022. We also have new merch coming. We have Delirium hats, which will be available at amysascloset.com later on this month. Okay, see you on our next shift.
Specifically because of my issues with
Yeah, edit that out, Shouter. Edit that out.